peace on earth, and of course that is one of the themes, one of the Advent themes as we head towards Christmas. Peace on earth, goodwill towards men. It is a wonderful aspirational goal, but for the people of Ukraine, over a couple of years into the war with Russia, huge loss of life, devastation on the battlefield, damaged energy infrastructure as they're moving into one of the coldest times of the year. Peace on earth just seems a little bit too far away, perhaps for some, but recently some potential hope on the horizon. Joining me on the program now from Mission Without Borders, Barry Raeburn. Barry, kia ora, good morning.
Good morning, Andrew. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Always a blessing, always a pleasure.
Now, peace for Ukraine, as I mentioned, peace is one of these wonderful Christmas ideas, but having hope for peace. Recent talks, recent comments in the media at least, that peace may be possible, peace between Russia and Ukraine. What's the details on this, Barry?
Yeah, so I think that there's a lot of changing around the world with political situations. There's changes across the board in America, as we know, the election there, and then there's been a series of involvements with the Europeans getting involved with conversations, dialogue with Russia and Ukraine, and there has been some talk of maybe coming to some sort of agreement for peace, and obviously that's been our prayer, that dialogue and negotiation rather than continued ongoing grind of war would be preferable for sure. And peace on earth, like you say, what a wonderful thing to pray for and hope for at Christmas time.
How now, in terms of what I've heard, and it's a bit speculative, and I know some of the comments made by people on media and social media, that's not necessarily what will emerge, but certainly talks about potentially Ukraine seceding some of their territory in the east in exchange for NATO membership or NATO protection. What's your thoughts on this? Is it likely, or is it just hopeful speculation?
Well, look, I mean, obviously anything that's going to lead towards a pathway towards peace and some sort of agreement would be just absolutely wonderful. I think that some of these. I mean, the other side of it is that some of the dialogue and the things in the media have been saying we're that much closer to World War III. So I mean, it's very difficult to know which way things are going to play out. But certainly, if there can be a pathway to peace, it's going to be a lot better for those that are continuing to suffer. I think there's been over 1 million people killed or wounded in this war, and millions displaced and so forth. So the ongoing devastation and tragedy of it, it would be nice to see an end to it. I mean, it's very difficult to know what kind of brokering is going to be taking place and what kind of. It's certainly nice to hear some talk of that from the leaders, from the political leaders. That could be a possibility.
To talk about some of the eastern provinces of Ukraine essentially becoming Russian territory now. Of course, Russia took Crimea a few years back, and there's been claims by Russia that these territories have already been made part of Russia, and of course Ukraine has disputed that, and hence the war.
Yeah.
Any thoughts from your people in Ukraine as to how this would go down? There's been a couple of years of people fighting to get back territory that Russia invaded, to give those away to Russia. That's going to be a difficult one to swallow for some people.
Well, certainly in the east of Ukraine, there are a lot more people on that side of that part of the country who would be more sympathetic towards Russia and Ukraine, more Russian speaking, more Russian aligned. We have had instances where we've had churches and other groups, and with Mission Without Borders, where we've gone to take aid across to the eastern part from the west, and the church has been involved with breaking down the walls of some of those views of the western part of the Ukraine. So there's been a role that the church has played and Mission Without Borders has played to be breaking down some of those barriers. I think that obviously the whole situation is just incredibly painful and unfortunate. I think Ukraine generally would like to maintain its territorial integrity and sovereignty as a nation. But if this is a way forward it can provide a lasting, ongoing peace, that would be a great thing, I guess. But yeah, I don't know if there's going to be too many winners with all of
Yeah.
this when it all finally unfolds, and then we'd have to start looking at rebuilding and all the work that's involved in that as well. So yeah, it's huge, huge job, whichever way things play out.
And not victory at any cost, of course. In the one of the downsides of this is when it looks like potentially the partners will be negotiating a peace. There seems to be a last-minute scramble, even as the weather is deteriorating and snow is falling in parts of Ukraine. A last-minute push to have as much territory as possible on each side to take to the negotiating table to get the best deal for them and their people, which means that the loss of life has gone up, the number of casualties per day has gone up, and as mentioned, as the weather deteriorates, it's just getting much more miserable on the front lines.
Absolutely. And I think that, with this, there is this desire to have a territorial advantage. There's been the use of ballistic missiles on both sides in this conflict. The conflict is obviously it's heated up. And I think there's a knowledge on both sides that is before winter hits and everything freezes over.
Yeah.
There's a real push at this time. But like you say, the human cost and the toll is massive, and the scale of it all is massive as well. So yeah, incredibly sad and incredibly tragic.
Even moving away from the front lines, and as you say, ballistic missiles are being used. So even territories far to the west of Ukraine are being hit. Civilian infrastructure, particularly energy infrastructure, is under attack. Another bleak winter for people with some of the energy, some of the electricity infrastructure damaged in the last year.
Yeah, and even for our office in Sani, which is in the west of Ukraine, the infrastructure has been targeted in recent missile strikes. So they've been without power all across the western part of Ukraine, on and off. But certainly when missiles strike, there's a scramble to rebuild infrastructure to get power up and running again. And as winter comes, that kind of thing becomes just, I don't know, how can you put it into words how horrible it all is in
Yeah.
terms of what people have to suffer through and endure. I was going to share just a little story. We have a lady who has fled the war. She was 6 months pregnant. Her husband's on the front lines in a small town in Sani, in the town I just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And she's getting some support from us in our work, but she's just one example of millions and millions. I think 3.7 million internally displaced people across the country, just living in just temporary shelter and accommodation. And as winter comes, they're really looking at difficult times.
Yeah, really, really difficult indeed. And Barry, thank you so much for what you and your team are doing. If Christmas is real to us here in New Zealand, and gosh, what a difference, as all the pūrekawas are in bloom and everybody's looking forward to summer holidays, a stark contrast in the ways in which Christmas will be acknowledged. But if that message of hope and love and peace and joy means anything to us here, encouraging people to prayerfully consider making charitable donations and prayer support as well a part of their Christmas celebration, supporting those who are doing it tough, including those in Ukraine at the moment. Barry, if people wanted to make that connection, if they wanted to be a part of what you and your team are doing in that part of the world, what's the best way of doing that?
Well, we have something that we're continuing to promote this month as well, which is called an Operation Christmas Love Box.
Mm-hmm.
It's a box filled with essentials, $45 a box. Essentials, a few treats for the children, and it's really just to get families through, provide some additional support. It needs hygiene materials as well as blankets and so forth get distributed out at Christmas time. So if you did want to go to our website, www.mwb.org.nz, you'll see it sitting there on the front page of our website. And and if you'd like to make someone's Christmas in Ukraine, like this lady Yulia, there with her children, just had a little baby, 6 months pregnant, just had a baby, when the war broke out, just had a baby, and so she needs support, and so many other families are doing it tough this winter. So yeah, you could get on our website, make a donation, and make someone's Christmas that much more special.
And a wonderful thing to do as families. I suppose you mentioned Yulia and her family, and I know this is a lot of what you do with these Christmas boxes of blessing, really, is it's for families and households. So from our family to yours, as it were, as a household, talk with, if you've got young kids at home, talk to the kids about what you guys are going to be doing for Christmas. A wonderful way of engaging with the Christmas story and also being a blessing to people over the other side of the world as well. Barry, just one more time for the website if people wanted to find out more and connect with this opportunity.
Yes, mwb.org.nz. Thank you so much for those of you that are supporting us and will make a donation. That'd be wonderful.
Thanks, Barry. Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.